Hey everyone, welcome to the session of emulating threat actor reconnaissance of human targets, and thanks for all being here. Daniel Schneider, our OSINT intelligent expert at VanishID, will be presenting. Danielle is a seasoned cybersecurity professional of managed services at the VanishID team. She specializes in protecting individuals and organizations from social engineering attacks. Prior to joining VanishID, she pioneered digital footprint and executive protection services at Tall Poppy as a founding security analyst, bringing expertise in OSINT investigation, threat analysis, and incident response. Danielle, go ahead and take it away.
Hey everybody, thank you for the intro, Andrew. Want to confirm that everybody is seeing the correct slides here, and I'm not sharing my mess of a desktop. So hopefully that's all good. Good, amazing. Okay. So yes, I'm with VanishID. We are a cybersecurity firm whose primary mission is to reduce digital exposure for companies and their employees. So like Andrew mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about threat actor recon, or at least emulating it. So how threat actors conduct that reconnaissance on human targets using the same tools and techniques that people use in the wild. So let's get into it by starting by meeting John Doe. There's a lot to know about this John Doe. He is an new engineering manager at Biopharma Industries within his first 6 months. He's 44 years old, lives in the Milwaukee area, has a husband, Blake, two kids, Sam and James, and loves a good day on the lake, new to running, just bought his second house, was active on old Usenet forums back in the day, and ran a custom a Linux fan blog back in the day with a custom domain until it expired and got taken over by a spammer. But despite being a really tech savvy guy, he's left a very large digital footprint, which has made him somewhat susceptible to highly targeted social engineering attacks, which can later extend to his company. So, how did we get here? How did we find all this information on poor John Doe? And what can we do to protect ourselves from this happening to us? So let me tell you a little bit about who we are and why this matters. Andrew gave a bit of a background on me, but before here at VanishID, where I'm a senior manager on our managed services team, I was a security analyst at Tall Poppy, which is another cybersecurity organization that specialized in protecting people from online harassment. And over the years, I have personally conducted OSINT hunts and reconnaissance on hundreds of people in a defensive position, and often work one-on-one with individuals to help them reduce their digital exposure. And so for VanishID, we run as a managed service. So there's nothing for you to do as the practitioner or the sponsor of that program for whoever you're working with. We work in the background to reduce employees' digital footprints through data broker remediation, OSINT hunts, cybersecurity, education, and incident response. Why does it matter to do these things in 2025? I think a lot of it is somewhat self-explanatory, but we are seeing an explosion in the sophistication of social engineering attacks, especially given AI tools making it faster and more effective and easier than ever before. In addition to that, the data broker industry has grown exponentially and gotten even more complicated. Remote work is, I guess, sort of on the downswing at this point, unfortunately, but it has expanded attack surfaces and given attackers more ways to target people at work and at home. And through our work here, what we've learned is that traditional cybersecurity training isn't really enough anymore. You could have the best EDR in the world, but if a threat actor could call up your CFO and convince them to wire transfer money because they know intimate details about their personal life, your technical controls can't help you. So before we get into the fun stuff, I want to show you a bit of a disclaimer or just talk about one. This data is fake. There probably are real John Does out there. They must get a lot of spam. I'm not showing any real data here. We're not going to dox somebody or do recon and a real organization. But the tools that I'm using here are very real though. and are what both threat actors or attackers and defenders use to conduct reconnaissance. So as you all often know, the tools for each of these operations can be similar or the same. It's really that intent and the resources behind you that make a difference between acting ethically and in defense of your organization and just harming people, which we don't do. So today we're going to step into, with that in mind, we're going to step into the mind of an attacker to understand their methodology so we can better defend against it. So here's what we're going to cover today. Like I just mentioned, we're going to step into the mind of an attacker and understand why they would target this company, how they found John Doe, and how they go about selecting specific individuals to focus on. The bulk of our time will be spent watching the actual hunt unfold. So I'll walk through real OSINT techniques and tools that attackers can use to build comprehensive dossiers on their targets. You'll see exactly how much information can be gathered and how quickly, but with an important caveat that we'll be focusing on non-technical recon here. So we're not going to be emulating scanning company networks or reading engineering blogs or looking through tech stacks to try to find technical exploitation. That's not going to be the main focus today. Of course, that is a really common and effective technique for threat actors to take when they begin any offensive operation. But today we're largely going to be focusing on things like social media, public records, archives, things like that. We'll also talk a bit about that entire digital footprint ecosystem that makes this all possible, where all of this information comes from, and why is it so hard for individuals to protect themselves from this kind of thing. And finally, I'll just spend a few minutes talking about how VanishID ourselves approaches this problem and what a comprehensive solution looks like in practice. And our team is going to be hanging out in the chat here, but if you have any questions along the way, feel free to drop them there, and I'll may be able to get to it while I'm speaking, but if not, and we'll have some time at the end, we can answer anything there. So definitely feel free to drop questions in the chat. All right, so when beginning an OSINT hunt and recon phase, we need to step into the mind of an attacker. So let's think about why they might be targeting this fictional company, Biopharma Industries, and who they might go after when they're starting their hunt. So we know that threat actors don't discriminate. They will target anyone and everyone at an organization if it'll help them get ahead. But they're also human for the most part, and they'll go for what makes sense and what'll get them the most bang for their buck. So here's how a threat actor might think about biopharma industries. What might be valuable from that type of organization? As you can guess, it is somewhere in the sphere of biotech and pharmaceuticals. And what does that mean for a threat actor? It means that they've got valuable data that a threat actor might want. So it might be as simple as deploying ransomware on that company network and hoping for a payout. But they might also want to steal intellectual property, patient data, employee data, or shut down that company's operations entirely. Biotech and pharmaceutical companies are particularly attractive targets because they often have regulation and compliance to pressures to handle with that make them more likely to pay ransoms more quickly. They handle sensitive patient data that is valuable on the dark web and in hacker forums, and they might be conducting research on competitors that nation states might want to steal. So all valuable information that would make biopharma industries a really attractive target. So if you're a threat actor and you said, okay, biopharma industries, let's see what we can find on them. How are you going to go about finding the person to start this operation by looking at? So you will probably want to try and get the most bang for your buck if you're going to get detected. So you want to go after somebody who has the most access and influence in an organization that you can manage. So that means things like leadership, IT, security, engineering. These are the people who can give you access to the systems that you want, or who can authorize payments and might make decisions under pressure. And of those people, someone with a large digital footprint will often give an attacker the most to work with when creating their narrative. Those who are new to their roles might also be attractive targets because they might be eager to impress whoever they're working with, their new bosses, their new coworkers. They might not have completed all of their required security training, and they might just not know everybody that well yet. So they get a suspicious email or call or text from somebody, and they're like, "This, I don't know." I don't know this guy well enough to know if this is exactly how he speaks. So maybe this is actually him. So those are all things that a threat actor would look for. And when doing that, they might start by mapping out an organization. They might crawl LinkedIn to see who is a good target. And if they're particularly sophisticated, they might not actually be using LinkedIn directly to avoid leaving any digital breadcrumbs across the way or along the way, like seeing that they're going from their own account. They might be using a LinkedIn sock puppet, which are somewhat notoriously difficult to maintain. They might be looking at a third-party business contact database like ZoomInfo or RocketReach or the org, places that scrape LinkedIn themselves and other people's contacts lists for sales and outreach reasons. Those can be other places where you find that information that won't leave the same type of artifacts and forensics of sorts. But let's say that they are starting with LinkedIn just because this is the most straightforward approach for today. Uh, when looking through that organization, they'll be looking for the company structure and reporting relationships. They'll be seeing who is a manager, who is a director, who might have access to specific systems, or who might be influential. So with all of that in mind, our hypothetical attacker here might have a list of six or so targets to go look at based just on their roles or other information that they find by just looking at a cursory glance. So things like HR, IT, recruiting, engineering, those are all gathered from open source data on LinkedIn that could also have been found on third-party business contact databases as well. So with that list of people to look at, they might then go look at each LinkedIn profile in particular to get a sense of somebody's openness in their digital footprint. Just right off the bat, who has a detailed profile? Who maybe has a unique name? That would make it a lot easier to search for them in different data repositories. Who has done speaking engagements and might be somewhat of a public figure and makes themselves accessible for people to try to reach out to them. Who is new to the company and might be trying to establish themselves professionally. So I mentioned this isn't random. Attackers are looking for specific indicators that suggest that a person might have a rich digital footprint that can be exploited. All right, so based on this criteria, our attacker narrows down to a fewer individuals, with one leading the pack. John J. Doe, engineering manager at the company. So looking at his profile, there are a few reasons why he stands out. First, his name. So obviously, John Doe is a placeholder, a common placeholder name, fake name. We're going to pretend in this fictional threat actor universe that actually John Doe is a really unique name. Almost nobody else has it. Very great stuff here that we're seeing. Uh, with that too, we have a middle initial that can really help differentiate this from all the other few John Does out there. Second is his LinkedIn headline that has his exact city, not just Wisconsin, but specifically the Milwaukee area, along with his detailed job history with previous companies and his locations there. So from this, we can see, okay, I think John J. Doe has been in Milwaukee for a long time, and that will really help us, or help this theoretical threat actor when they're trying to find information on them to narrow this down across other John Does who might have been frequent travelers. So next, looking at this profile, we can see a college education section that includes his graduation year, which can allow an attacker to presume his age. So, based on when he graduated back then. Volunteer work is also helpful. So local private elementary school here, presuming it has an actual name in this fictional universe. That is a pretty unique thing to have on someone's profile. Unlikely that somebody is just going to have this. They're just going to be really involved in a local elementary school that they don't care about or don't have any affiliation with. Of course, that's possible, but not as common. And in my experience, I typically see this for people who have kids in that school or in that school district. They want to volunteer. They might put it on their profile as well. And then finally, there is a link to on his profile to an interview where he talks about an old blog he used to run called the linuxmaster.net, an interview with Linux Fans United over there, which talks about how he got his start in engineering and the tech space. All right, so put together, there is a lot to go on here. An attacker might presume that the openness on LinkedIn here probably extends to other parts of this John Doe's life. And in my experience as well, it's rare to come across somebody who is this open on LinkedIn, but private in every other aspect of their digital life. People tend to be consistently open or consistently private across platforms, with the caveats that someone's age or other demographics or their own position within a company can make a big difference as well. Somebody who is in a C-suite is going to have usually somewhat of a LinkedIn presence, depending on how public facing they are, but they might want to keep that private life private, and they might have already had some security work done. So with that in mind, from an attacker's perspective, this John J. Doe represents a really, really good target to pursue. He's got multiple pieces of PII available online. There is specific geographic and temporal data points. We know how long he's probably been in the Milwaukee area, at least from a starting point, and that can help us narrow things down. He's referenced external resources that can be investigated, concrete resources. There's a pattern of sharing personal information across social media. He's got a high access tactical role as an engineering manager and previously as a software engineer. And he is relatively new to the company, so he might still be establishing security habits there. So with all of this in mind, an attacker would feel pretty confident that it is worth investing some time at least to do a deep dive on this John Doe that might yield information that can help them craft a highly targeted attack. All right, so let's begin some recon. Uh, we have that blog that this poor John mentioned on his LinkedIn called the linuxmaster.net. An attacker could pivot off of any one of the pieces of information on LinkedIn, but they might start with this blog in particular. They might actually be a Linux fan and be like, "That's kind of funny. Let me see what's going on here with this website registration history." So looking that up, they might start with a tool that I use called Whoozy or Huoxi. I don't know how to pronounce it. But that's one I really like. And they might find this old history here with registration going back to 2005. That for those of you who remember, automatic privacy domain protection did not always used to be a thing, or it used to be a thing that you had to pay for, and is available online in perpetuity. Once you list your registration there publicly, it is there forever. I have not heard of a case in which who is data is scrubbed after the fact, but if you have, tell me, because I would like to know about that, because that is very interesting. But in this who is history, we see a few things like a Yahoo email address, a name, an address, and a phone number. So with just this piece of information alone, we've now got an email address and a phone number. And the odds are decent that he still has access to these, not guaranteed, but they are super valuable pieces of information for an attacker to pivot off of as well. So running that email through various repositories to see what comes up would be one of the next steps that someone might take. they might check a data breach repository called Snoospace, another one with kind of a weird name. In my work, I regularly consult several different data breach repositories for in OSINT hunts, and each have their own strengths and weaknesses. One thing I like about Snoospace compared to other ones is it returns all the results in one giant page, which can make it really helpful to just find Command F to see what you can see that might be relevant to that person. It's also really good for wildcard searching. But going back to these results, we see one from the MyFitnessPal breach from back in the day, and it includes a username, which we will file away for later or the threat actor will file away for later for other reconnaissance, as well as an IP address and a totally real password, totally real plain text password that we're going to pretend in this universe is actually really unique and personal to this John J. Doe. All right, so we've got a couple of different pieces of information now further to pivot off of. Let's run this through another OSINT tool here that's pretty popular called OSINT.industries. You might be able to run it through Epios as well. That's another option. These are reverse email lookup tools that often work through Find My Friends functionality, or sometimes the forgot password flows that allow you to link an email address to different accounts. So this one shows you a blast from the past to find a MySpace account that has a similar, another username, but not much else. So this does suggest that it might not be his main email address anymore. Typically, you will see newer accounts pop up in these reverse email tools. They don't often extend to older social media for a couple of reasons. A lot of those sites don't exist anymore. I don't think you could do a reverse email Friendster lookup, although that would be really interesting. And if you know about that, please contact me because I would love to know. But in terms of the old social media that you might find here, it's about MySpace, domains. You can sometimes find like Gaia, but those are the big ones. Tumblr, you used to have a reverse email lookup ability, but they got rid of that, which is probably for the benefit of a lot of people's cringy phases in high school. And yeah, so this is one thing that you would turn up here in this investigation that would suggest that this is probably not his main email address anymore. It doesn't have any new pieces of information tied to it, but it's still connected to a digital identity, and it's helpful to file away and maybe pivot off of. All right, so let's run this in Google Groups, which serve as a Usenet archive for at least the time being. They stopped archiving new Usenet posts a couple years ago. I don't know when they will decide to pull the plug on hosting all of this data. I hope they won't, because it is mostly just plain text. But you can still find it here if you want in Google Groups. So you can find posts here from Usenet, for those who remember, going way back to the late 80s on there. And by searching for this John Doe, we might find a post back from 2000 that talks about various technologies and applications that they might have used and advice that Joan gave. So back in these earlier days of the internet, people tended to be more open and shared things that they might not share as openly these days, like that old email address. So again, another data point saying, hey, this isn't his main email address anymore. With all this evidence in mind, that is something that indicates that it's probably not his main email address anymore, which makes it helpful to go and look at other data breach records to see what we might be able to find. So we have, we're going to search on another data breach repository called Dehashed that I use at times with that searching on that plain text password that we found earlier. Dehashed is nice for searching on plain text and hashed passwords, but they actually did a pretty big update a couple of months ago or a year ago or so that made the results a lot worse in my opinion, and it's harder to search on now, so that might wind up moving out of the rotation at some point. But in doing so, here we find another email address that was totally that was in the last FM breach a while back. So we have now got two email addresses and a plain text password, and the knowledge that that old Yahoo is old. Then there's a new, probably newer, Gmail account. With this plain text password, an attacker could already start to have the seeds planted in their mind for launching a credential stuffing attack. This Yahoo address might not be really used anymore, and we have a plain text password associated with it. That's a really powerful tool to try and do an account takeover attack. All right, so running that email address through OSINT Industries as well, we get hits on Strava and Google Maps, with Google Maps showing specific contributions for businesses in the Milwaukee area, with some really surprisingly specific info listed in reviews about his kids' ages, and the business owner helpfully confirmed that this is definitely John uh, uh, through his husband's name. And Strava is another confirmation point here that shows, okay, this guy really is in the Milwaukee area. We can really confirm that here. And as an aside, it's not, you might see something like this and say, are people really leaving Google Maps reviews that are this detailed and have this much PII? And the answer is yes. Yes, they are. This happens all the time. I see Google Maps reviews like this very, very often. And one thing when we meet with people one-on-one to help them with their own privacy posture, making Google Maps reviews like this private, they don't necessarily have to be deleted depending on that person's own um, the threats they might face, but making the profile private itself is something that Google introduced within the last couple of years. So now if somebody has your Gmail address, they can't go and as easily see all of the Google Maps reviews that you might have ever left. All right, so we've got a couple of different usernames now in the rotation, and it's time to use some username enumeration tools to see what social media profiles that we might find. These can be hit or miss and sometimes turn up false positives, as I think a lot of you who might have used these before can attest to as well, but they are still worth giving a shot to see what comes up. So here we might see John's Facebook profile. We could have maybe found this, or the threat actor could have maybe found this in a different way. They could have searched on the person's name or on John's name on Facebook, presuming that this is a unique John Doe and not the John Doe placeholder name that everybody tends to use. But in the use your imagination here to say, actually, these photos that are black boxes, they're actually really personal photos of him and his family. So with which is actually a really common occurrence as well, with an intro that includes his old job position, where he's from, that he's married, when he joined, all of that kind of stuff. We've got a lot of points, so the threat actor has a lot of points here already to try and create highly convincing social engineering attacks. All right, so the attacker has a lot of info so far, but they don't know where exactly this John J. Doe lives. You might be able to presume it. Okay, I'd say based on everything that we've seen so far, he lives in Milwaukee. I think we can say that. But it's helpful to know exactly where to help craft a social engineering attack. So they might go to a data broker to confirm this. And for some background on data brokers, they are a web of companies that buy and sell consumer data, like your home address and phone number. Been Verified is an example of one of them. They're pulling records from everywhere that you can imagine, public records, voter registration, property records, court documents, all of that kind of stuff. Been Verified, like I mentioned, is one of the biggest data brokers today and has very comprehensive information. It gives us a detailed profile on this John Doe, along with a possible relative. So notably, it's missing a few things. Like we don't have those personal email addresses that we found through or the threat actor found through other reconnaissance, and it has a birthday month, and year. All right, so let's talk about all of the intelligence that we've gathered so far. It spans multiple email addresses, a plain text password, phone number, address, family information, hobbies, professional background, travel patterns, even more that one could have found in social media that we didn't include here. Like, if you found a Twitter profile or an old GitHub that had information about the tech stack that he likes to use, or shows that he likes, or people that he follows on there that might give you insight into his political views or orientation or anything like that. An attacker can use these to craft a social engineering attack that references these specific interests or call him using personal information to establish credibility, or even approach him physically at locations where he's known to frequent. So you might be thinking, okay, this attacker has a lot of stuff on John Doe. What are they actually going to do with it? I talked a little bit about some of the things that they can do, but they might craft those highly personalized phishing attacks. Physical security exploitation is pretty unusual. You don't really see that very often. It extends into things that extend into the physical world tend to involve people who are more in like the crypto space, or if they have very, very specific knowledge and might be targeted by a nation state um, or other advanced threat actor there. But nonetheless, with all they've gathered so far, they know when this person's house might be empty. They might be at the lake with the fam or taking other family photos. We talked a bit about credential stuffing. You've got a plain text password and 2 email addresses that have been known to use that, along with that Yahoo address that is probably no longer really in his main rotation. So passwords probably haven't been changed in a long time. They've got at least one password that we know, and personal information, and that might extend to technical exploitation as well. So I talked about a GitHub account that you might find that could include the tech stack that he uses and can be used to craft those social engineering attacks. So it is theoretically possible for someone to find this information on themselves and clean it up. How often does that happen, though, in my experience? Um, Almost never. It is not uncommon for somebody to look through part of their Facebook profile and say, I'm just going to run through the privacy checkup real quick and do this and this and this, and then, okay, I'm good, right? Uh, no, there are way more settings to go through than just that. The nature of the internet is that much of it lives forever, or at least for a long time. Some things that you think might be deleted, like if anybody remembers Yahoo groups for back in the day and all of that interesting content, that is actually not deleted as you might think, or at least a lot of it is not deleted. A lot of it is listed in the Internet Archive as a bunch of huge zip files that you can download and open yourself if you so desire to do so. And I am waiting for somebody to make a service where you can search through, upload all of those documents and search through old Yahoo Groups archives. So if you want to develop that, contact me because I want to see it. But remember all the sources that we look through here. We had MySpace, we had Usenet, we had Whois Records from 2005. These are things that are that long tail of a digital footprint that make it so difficult for somebody to clean up their presence over time. For opt-outs for data brokers, those can be temporary. Data gets re-added, especially as somebody might have other patterns in life or might just have things happen. Like they buy a house, they buy a car, they open a new line of credit. All of that information goes and flows to data brokers, which then use it to create new records online. New companies are launching constantly. So some data brokers might go down, they might go defunct. Other ones spring up in their stead and are grabbing fresh information to populate. In addition to new data breaches that happen all the time. So, when I think about the data breaches that have happened within the last couple of years that have provided a huge window into somebody's digital footprint that includes things like Twitter is a really, really big one. I'm trying to think. Parlor was another one that was very insightful here. And then, of course, we have the classics like Last.fm and MyFitnessPal that have usernames and plain text passwords or crackable passwords that extend to uh, a lot of different accounts that you can use to enumerate. So, and then, of course, expanding attacker capabilities. So, you know, there's new functionality being added all of the time that allows attackers to find old accounts that you might not know about anymore or that you might have forgotten about 100%. So this is why we built VanishID the way that we did. We realized pretty quickly that expecting individuals to handle all of this information themselves is like expecting people to be their own lawyer or doctor. Maybe they don't need 4 years of study, but it's just not realistic for somebody to become an expert in all of these specific minutiae of information. So we run things as a managed service. We only need employee names and work email addresses, which is one of the biggest differences between us and some other folks in the space that require employees to sign up on their own. If any of you have ever tried to get anyone to do anything ever, you know how hard it is to get anyone to do anything. So us being able to take this action on someone's behalf makes a really big difference for the coverage that you get in your organization. And we then get to work on our end with that and work to find and remove data, staying on top of what data brokers come and go, which can be complicated and changes all the time. So side note, if you want to know some deep data broker lore and how things have changed within the last 6 months, let me know because I can go on about that for a long time. But anyway, we have built systems with that background knowledge in mind. And are constantly looking to monitor on an ongoing basis. Some data brokers are nice and say, hey, you said you wanted to opt out from this one. I will do that for 5 years. Others say, that's nice. I will see you in 3 months when I want to put this information back up. So it is a recurring problem that requires recurring effort. For those who sign up for an executive protection license, get a digital footprint hunt from us, which our OSINT analysts do a similar but more in-depth version of some of the recon that we cover today. Getting into the mindset of an attacker, not cataloging every mention of somebody, but really focusing on where their PII might be. We put that into a report with actionable insights for people. And then after we deliver that, we work with people one-on-one to schedule intelligence or privacy briefings where we can talk about security and privacy with that person one-on-one and have a bit of a working session to get their privacy posture in a better shape. So I've talked a bit about a lot of the work that we do one-on-one to reduce risk for individuals, but I want to give you guys just a preview into some of the organization-wide view and how this looks across an entire population. We have the VanishID Command Center, which is what, if you were the program manager, if you rolled this out for your team, this is one of the resources that you would see. I'm actually showing you the VanishID team, our own company, to see the risk that we've reduced for ourselves. So we measure risk across a couple of different dimensions. Risk to be impersonated, attacked, monitored, solicited, from value to accessibility. So value, how valuable they are to a threat actor, accessibility, how much information they have online. So to give you an idea of impact, this is where we started here in the red, orange, and then here in the green, blue is where we're at now. Getting a bit more granular, this is where we see peer benchmarking, how we compare to others in our industry and the total actions that we've taken. We convey this in a privacy preserving way. You don't want to know your employees' private data. You don't want to have it. You don't want to see it. You don't want people to think that you have it. We're all trying to fight against that perpetual narrative that security and IT teams are spying on people for fun. Yeah, that's not what's happening. This is something that you could show people to say, hey, in aggregate, this is what we're seeing. We're not looking at your own personal information. And then for those high value targets, people with access like John Doe in this situation, these are some of the stats that you might see to other stakeholders or show to other stakeholders in your organization. The types of PII that we've been able to remove from people for people, like things like their relatives, their home addresses, email, etc. So could we have stopped this attacker? In a word, yes, with the caveat that a very motivated threat actor would have probably moved on to somebody else. There are parts of people's digital footprints that will never go away. Whois records, data breaches, archives, those are sticking around. But there are things that we would have turned up in this digital footprint hunt, like uh, things listed on his LinkedIn profile, reverse email lookup results, Google Maps, Strava, username enumeration, Facebook, data broker records. These are all things that you could take action on and have a big impact. All right, so putting all that together, the full dossier would be a lot lighter and would take a threat actor much longer. So the reality check here is that both you and your teammates, your leadership might be exposed to this type of reconnaissance. Somebody could do this within just a couple of hours. Traditional security measures aren't designed to address this problem, but it is fixable. It just might require a slightly different approach. So whether you work with us on this problem or try to tackle it internally or go with somebody else, the important thing is recognizing that this is a real threat that needs real attention, because I can guarantee you that bad guys are paying attention. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time today. I hope that was helpful and maybe a little insightful. You might have learned something. Feel free to contact me if you got any OSINT privacy security questions. I'm always happy to talk about that with folks. And I'll turn it back to you,
Thank,
Andrew.
thanks, Danielle. So we have a couple minutes until the next session starts. Danielle, if you're happy to answer one or two questions, that would be great. So I'll ask those now. Do you have any alternative tool you like to use when dhash gives poor results or no results?
Yeah. So searching on there, and I'm thinking that that might refer to like plain text passwords. Uh, Snewspace has some plain text passwords that you can search on, but it's not great. This is something I'm still looking for new tools or suggestions on. I know, of course, if I had my own data breach database that I maintain myself, which would be a lot of work, I could probably just search on passwords there, but I don't have that because it is a lot of work to do. So I don't have a concrete answer for you if you're hoping to get search on plain text passwords in the future. But I think it's likely that we'll see more tools pop up there to address that space as dhash has gotten a little less effective, in my opinion.
Awesome. I think we have time for one more question. If you could recommend one thing that individuals do to protect themselves and reduce their digital footprint, what would you recommend?
Oh, that's a hard question because everybody's different. But I think if there's one thing, it I'll split this into two categories. If you're over 30 and you got no, okay, if you're over 26 and you have a Facebook profile, because people under 26 don't really have Facebook profiles anymore. If you have one, go and do that privacy checkup, because Facebook is like the king of leaking your information, like on your cover photo, on your profile photos and posts and things like that. For people who are younger than that, running yourself through a reverse email tool is really helpful, because you might have been an early adopter of other types of social media that are likely to be listed on there, and that can help you clear up a lot of the different the long tail of your digital footprint over time. So there's a
Awesome.
couple things I could talk about that for a long time.
Awesome. Thanks so much.